Jerry and Charlie riding through the airwaves, bringing you the heat. Come on, pull your bands. Now get up out your seat. They're bringing you all things Mets. They're bringing you all things Mets. They're bringing you all things Mets. Now you're listening to Chase Station.
Today is Monday, May 12th. The Mets are coming off a pair of impressive series wins against the Diamondbacks and the Chicago Cubs. They are moving in the right direction after some one-run loss frustrations. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jack, a.k.a. Jolly. Joining me on this fine Monday morning, this beautiful spring weather outside, is Jerry Blevins from Ohio. Jerry, how you doing?
Yes, long-time listener, first-time caller, Jerry from Ohio.
Happy to have you
lovely,
on as a
man.
guest today. Very nice.
I'm great. I'm really good. It is beautiful here. It's been rainy. That's what happens in spring in the Midwest. You guys get a little bit of it too. So, but now it's beautiful. So, enjoying it.
Picture perfect weather. The Mets are at home in this picture perfect weather. They'll get a game in tonight. I'm not sure about the next 2 days. It looks like it's going to rain here the rest of the week. But I am going tonight to Paul Skeens Day, but it's actually David Peterson Bump Day. So that's the real holiday we're celebrating.
No, even David Peterson knows it's Paul Skeens Bump Day.
I am excited. I haven't been this excited to watch a baseball player in person since I saw Juan Soto make his Mets debut. But then before that, the first time I saw Ohtani in person. So it's going to be interesting. Paul Skeens kind of stuck in a tough situation over in Pittsburgh.
Dude, brutal. And he's kind of...
He hasn't been indestructible this season.
Correct. Yeah. He hasn't been, indestructible is the right word. He hasn't been, DeGrom from 17, 18, 19.
We say as we heavily critique the 23-year-old in his second MLB season. That's the standard he set. And the Mets, speaking of high standards.
He's still elite.
Yes.
But he hasn't been, head and shoulders above everybody else.
It would be nice to, get a W over Paul Skeens. And the Mets are very good in game ones, as we've seen over the past couple series, because they won both their game ones against the Cubs and against the Diamondbacks. We haven't chatted in a while. We haven't chatted since before the St. Louis series on the road. So I'm going to speed through a quick recap just so we know exactly what we're talking about today. But we got plenty to address. It's been a very eventful month of May so far, and it began with the Mets losing a series to the St. Louis Cardinals, a team that they had just 4 games swept. They went to Busch Stadium. They won the game that I thought they were going to lose, which was against Sonny Gray, who I think is one of the better veteran pitchers in the league right now. They jumped all over him. They put 17 hits up in the first game to go along with 9 runs and a Clay Holmes quality start. But then that dastardly doubleheader. I didn't even mean to alliterate there. It just happens when you're on one, folks. They got swept in a doubleheader, consecutive 1-run losses. It was a brutal day of viewing baseball. My goodness. I can't remember a day I've been that frustrated watching the Mets, and I had to watch it twice, essentially. Blake Tidwell made his Major League debut. It did not go well, 6 earned runs. Jesse Winker played 5 innings of left field, and we lost him for 2 months because he threw a ball in and strained his oblique, but that's a key to what happened in the series that followed. We'll get to that in a little bit. The difference in game 2 there, Victor Scott II robbing a Juan Soto 3-run homer on a really impressive catch in center field. That led to another 1-run loss, and it was the first time this season that the Mets dropped consecutive series in 2025. So that was pretty frustrating, and then it didn't get any easier because they were going on the road to Chase Field against a team that had just beat them on their home turf, but they survived a late bullpen collapse to win a 1-run opener game. It's nice to see a win in a 1-run game for a change. One of the stories here was Dedniel Nunez making his his season debut in 2025. He did not record an out, though. 3 earned runs and 3 walks, no outs recorded. The Mets were able to weather that storm thanks to a key Francisco Alvarez caught stealing in the 9th inning of that game. Controversial call, could have gone either way. Luckily, it went the Mets' way, and it might have just won them a game. In game 2, it was a Zach Allen masterclass. There's honestly not much to say there. He dominates the Mets. He's a free agent, guys. So if you want to, if you can't beat him, kind of thing. Game 3, though, that was the Kodai Senga day. He did walk 5 batters, but 6 innings, no earned runs, 2 hits. He looked purely unhittable. He lowers his season ERA to 1.16 on the year, and it was a Juan Soto 2-homer game that powered the Mets to a series victory in Arizona to even the season series against Arizona on the year. That could be important come season's end because Arizona looks like they're going to be in playoff contention for most of the year. Speaking of teams in playoff contention, the Mets did welcome the Chicago Cubs to town, one of the more exciting teams in 2025 baseball. I was very curious to see how the Cubs would look in this series. They're one of the teams that I've actually watched a ton of this year, so I was pretty familiar with their game. I thought for sure that game one was going to be a frustrating watch because Jameson Taillon was on the bump. If you've been a Mets fan for the past 4 years minimum, you know that Jameson Taillon always dominates us no matter what uniform he's wearing. But this day was a little bit different. The Mets jumped all over him for 4 solo home runs, one of them coming from Brett Baty, who got the call after Jesse Winker's IL stint. We'll talk a lot about him in this episode. Francisco Lindor with his 4th leadoff home run of the season in that game. Clay Holmes, another quality start. 6 innings, 1 earned run. Probably his best start of the season, in my opinion. The most clean, the least amount of traffic. Only the 4th inning home run to Kyle Tucker, which was his first home run allowed this entire season, which is an absurd stat. The Mets lost game 2 by 1 run. How many times have I said that? It was a Brett Baty 2-homer performance to get his OPS on the season up to 746. Keep your eye out for that. Keep your eye out for Tyler McGill as well, who's been struggling in May. 9 earned runs allowed in 9 2/3 innings so far in this month. The Mets came within 1 run when they were down 4-0 and 6-3 at separate points in this game, but they failed to complete the comeback. It was runners in scoring position yet again. 1 for 10 in this game, just brutal. But birthday boy Griffin Canning came through in game 3. 6 innings, 1 earned run, just a solo home run allowed to PCA, 5 strikeouts to 1 walk. He's been sensational, both of them, Griffin Canning and PCA. But Canning was really the star in this game on his birthday, on Mother's Day. And you know that if it's a day involving his wife or his children, Francisco Lindor is going to go off, and that's exactly what happened. He hits the go-ahead home run late in this game. The Mets tack on their insurance runs, and they win 6-2 to claim the series against the Chicago Cubs. So back-to-back series wins for the Mets to get back on the right track. They're now 8-8 in their last 16 games, which is .500 ball. 6 of those 8 losses by 1 run. It's hard not to think about how different this recent stretch could be for the Mets, but overall, they're still playing good baseball. They're playing very competitive baseball. Every game, they seem to be right in till the very end. And I think there's a lot of positive notes in these. There's a lot of frustrating losses, but I think that comes with the fact that you're heavily involved in every game, offensively and pitching-wise. I've done a lot of talking. Jerry, what do you think?
I think the 1-run games are a good sign that your team's competitive in pretty much every instance. It's frustrating to watch, especially when they fight back and just don't quite get there. But it's also the fact that they're fighting back.
Yeah.
Every time. They're in every ball game. So, you're going to have to start coming out on the winning end of some of those 1-run games. But as far as like a streak of consecutive loss series, I'm not too worried about it, to be honest. As far as their competitiveness, and they're showing some depth. Losing Winker was tough.
Yeah.
But we got a Brett Baty with a pulse. Like, he looked incredible. He looks really good. He looks like a different ball player at the plate to me. Whatever it was, like we saw it right at the end before he got optioned down, that he was starting to snap out of it a little bit. It was a little bit too little too late, but then he comes back up because opportunity is always there if you're ready, and he looks pretty good, man.
Yeah.
Beyond pretty good. Something, obviously I don't expect him to hit home runs every time he swings, but he looks like a more confident player, making contact on a consistent basis. But, as far as the overall series goes, obviously the Cubs are fresh in my mind, and that was this was one of the biggest series to me across the league in this short, version of the season we've gotten so far, because it's the Cubs, who are a really fun team that is a real contender, and they'll be making moves at the deadline, and the baseball is always more exciting when the Cubs are good, and they are good, and they looked really, really good against the Cubs, and they kind of showed what an established competitor looks like versus an upstart. So that was pleasant to see. But I love the performances that we're getting.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that the Cubs are kind of an upstart at this point. They're a very young team. They're dealing with some pitching injuries, and I think they've overcome them really, really well. But they do have a weakness, and it is their bullpen right now. And it was nice to see the Mets finally take advantage of a weaker bullpen in that final game, because they didn't really do it against Arizona. They
Correct.
didn't really do it against St. Louis, and they definitely didn't do it against Washington. And that resulted in a ton of losses in games that I considered pretty winnable. I mean, I'm still thinking about that Washington series that ended up a 4-game split when it could have been a 4-game sweep on the road. And you can do that all day, but it was important for the Mets to come back home and not lose another series at home, because I felt like that would have dampened what has been kind of the story for the Mets. Citi Field is becoming a very tough place for opposing teams to come into and win ball games. And the Arizona Diamondbacks were able to do it in kind of a weird series. It was important that I think the Mets, welcome in a division leader, a pretty convincing division leader at that, and take care of business at home. Again, this could have been a sweep if they were able to get, one more knock with runners in scoring position in that second game. But overall, these guys are playing good baseball. You did mention the Jesse Winker injury. It's a shame because he was starting to hit a little bit. We slashed out their May numbers for every Mets hitter and pitcher. The second highest OPS on the team, 10 plate appearances, was Jesse Winker in May. But number one right now is Brett Baty, the guy that came up and took that spot. There was a lot of discourse when Jeff McNeil was ready to return as to who was going to go down. I had mentioned a potential Starling Marte DFA. I got told swiftly that that's a terrible idea. Whatever, that's fine. Everyone to each their own. But Brett Baty was the one that got the short end there. Luckily for him, it's feeling like Vientos 2.0. I mean, so far the script is pretty much exactly the same. I mean, a guy spending a lot of time in AAA, he came up, got a brief stint, and came through in a couple key moments, sent back down, comes back up again. The next opportunity is being in to hit again. And he also plays third base. I don't know. Is that a little bit revisionist history? Maybe there's no walk-off home run there. But the point is, Brett Baty's going to the opposite field. He's hitting for power. And he's starting to look like he belongs at the major league level. And that's a really welcome sign for the Mets, because I think it's too early in the season to be making a big swing for a potential DH replacement. And the Mets need to look internally to replace that offensive production. And so far, they are getting that from Brett Baty. And we'll see how much that fares, because one bad week and we could be back to square one. But he looked very impressive, especially in game 2 of this Cubs series. 2 homers, 5 RBIs. Even the ball that he got out on, that strong lineup, looked like it might have carried all the way to the wall. So he's hitting the ball with authority, not less ground balls, which is always a welcome sight for him. And overall, the Mets are just hitting the ball better in May. They're still not getting those hits with runners in scoring position. Those numbers are still pretty poor across the board. I'm talking like worst in the league kind of poor, up down there with the White Sox, Rockies, and Orioles for some reason. What's going on in Baltimore? But the Mets are still finding ways to win games. They're using the long ball. And this Cubs series, I think, was necessary, I think, for Mets fans to not hit the panic button on what's been a kind of weird month of May. Return to, this team is a division leader deep into the season, and they've looked the part so far.
Yeah, there's a lot to unwrap there. Brett Baty, it's impossible not to make the comparison of what we saw with Vientos. Obviously, his story is a little bit different, being that he was like handed the reins,
Yeah.
and Vientos kind of got pushed to the back seat and then take over, whatever the case may be. And I'll be honest with you, I am in agreement with Starling Marte's role on this team.
Sure.
At some point, you're going to need some production. Jesse Winker hasn't been great. Starling Marte hasn't been great. You're not getting it from the DH position at all. And if Brett Baty, being a left-handed hitter, and Jeff McNeil being a left-handed hitter, and Acuna being a righty, and Tyrone Taylor, like if you can cycle those guys in versatility-wise to match up, and not have to. I mean, this is what happens when you have to put Jesse Winker in the outfield.
Yeah.
Something bad's gonna happen.
Yep.
You just can't do that to guys. That's the whole reason why you need bench players that can go out and play the field, so you don't have to put guys that play DA. Again, Jesse Winker should be able to handle a little bit of outfield, which he can. That's just tough. He's had some back issues, all the above, but you want him for his bat, and he's still got some thump left in it, but you're going to need production out of your DH position. And I think Brett Baty might be forcing the issue to to be on this roster because they need that bottom half. Outside of Lindor, Alonso, Soto, you got to have some consistency and some production and some threats of some pop.
Yeah.
And Baty looks like he might be that. Obviously, way too early, but he looks good. It's promising for the first time. You're right. He looks like he belongs versus he looks like he's, treading water, trying to just not drown in the sea of big league pitching. So
yeah, I think that's the biggest thing of like, if you're a Mets fan that's kind of tempering their expectations on Baty, that's more than fair. It's just the first time I've been kind of convinced that, okay, maybe this isn't a quadruple A player. Maybe this is a guy that can really hang. And granted, his big game came against a pitcher that was making his major league debut and a couple of the lackluster arms in the Cubs bullpen. Like, it's different when you see him homer off like Zach Wheeler, for example, before he got demoted. So if there's just more consistency there, you can get rightfully excited for it as a Mets fan. And it kind of leads into a question I wanted to ask you with all these differing performances, guys in slumps, guys, returning to the mean. I put this on the sheet and I'm curious because we do a lot of lineup talk on this show. I guess what is your best Mets lineup right now? Because I saw the lineup that came out on Saturday that had Vientos DHing, it had Baty at third, and it just looked like the most potent Mets lineup I had seen this season. And it's an interesting question because the Mets are in a position that, they can afford to mix and match. They have so many different options on the roster right now, all of whom feel like big league hitters that can compete in any at bat. And the length of this lineup has been really impressive. It just got me thinking about like what's the best spot for everyone, because I'll kick it off by saying that if Brett Baty continues to hit this way, which feels like it could be a possibility, there's a world where the Mets' best option is to cut off the DH platoon and just put Mark Vientos there, who's been swinging a better bat lately. You can improve your defense marginally with Brett Baty at third and Jeff McNeil or Luis Angel Acuna at second. I don't know. Like I've been, kind of anti-Starling Marte because I just feel like at this point in his career, I don't know how much he can offer the team outside of, being an important clubhouse presence. But I want to know what you think. What's your ideal Mets lineup right now?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, it's really nice to see Vientos kind of coming back out
and
of
it's been for a little bit now. It feels sustainable. Yeah.
Yeah, he looks back to himself. He follows Alonso in my dream lineup. He's got that prototypical power. He's capable of carrying that torch if they have to walk Pete Alonso, who's the second best hitter on the planet right now.
Best player in the National League, baby.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. That's it.
Yes.
Yeah. And to me, it's just his ability to drive the ball in all directions is key for Alonso behind them. And then after that, Nimmo seems to be now a middle of the lineup guy.
Yeah.
He's no longer the on-base percentage guy. He's no longer the, trying to work the count all the time. This seems to be who he is, and I'm okay with it. Another left-handed bat that can work an at bat, but more he's trying to drive the ball. So I like Nimmo following that. Ideally for me after that, it's Francisco Alvarez.
So far we have the same lineup, by the way.
Do we?
Yeah,
nice.
we have the exact same lineup.
It's Francisco Alvarez. I love Luis Torrens. I truly do, but he is 100% a backup.
And he's like a perfect backup.
He really is. I mean, the throws, he puts good at-bats together. He's a threat. He plays his ass off. Like, I love watching him play. But Francisco Alvarez is the future of the franchise at the catching position, and he's looked really good. Mm-hmm. I think, his potential to carry the torch for Vientos. I mean, we've seen 25 homers from him. He might be the guy that, if he's hot, can fill in behind Pete Alonso and let Vientos get a breather. But that's where I have him now. And then after that, I've got Acuna.
Mm-hmm.
I've got Baty, McNeil, depending on, who's hot or where the center fielder is at that point. And then I have McNeil, Tyrone Taylor in the outfield, depending in the 9th spot. So
yeah, there's some weird funk positionally at the bottom there, because Acuna played like a couple innings of third in the doubleheader, I think, and he looked good. And I think he's
a stud.
He's just a talented guy, and he's so young. And like I just feel like, and Mendoza's been good about this, playing the hot hand in general. And like we've seen Acuna get more playing time. There's just such a dimension to him that's not really a part of a lot of the other Mets everyday hitters, which is the speed factor and the, constant contact that he makes. He's not really a strikeout guy at all. He's been chasing a little bit lately, but still, it's not really a concern that I have for him. And then Tyrone Taylor at the bottom he's been great. Just steady Eddie. He's been so many times he's led off an inning and reset the lineup for the guys at the top, which has been big. But yeah, I think the biggest puzzle piece that's not fitting perfectly outside of that, top 6 that we have right now is Jeff McNeil. I don't really know. Like it's hard to be hard on him because he hasn't really gotten consistent playing time since coming back, and he has hit. Like the numbers don't lie. He's been hitting the ball and like not striking out. He's been, 2 homers and 44 plate appearances is pretty good for what we consider Jeff McNeil's power standard. You want to find him playing time. Is that as simple as a platoon at second base from lefties and righties? I don't know, because Acuna doesn't really feel like a guy that only hits lefties. It feels like he puts competitive at-bats together every day. So for me, I had Baty 7th, Acuna 8th, and Taylor 9th, with Jeff McNeil as kind of our super utility for now. But again, it's all about riding hot hands and figuring out what works. You mentioned Alvarez, who's quietly been hitting the ball very well. I think it's so interesting that like Francisco Alvarez is kind of he had the beginning of Terenz's career where he got called up very, very young, but I just feel like he's been protected better, and that's been the difference in his production coming along so early. You remember Terenz was a top prospect that got called up at 21 years old, but he got fully thrown into the fire, into an everyday playing role when he just wasn't ready for it. And his career's gone through such an ebb and flow since then that I think he's really found a good spot. And I really like that tandem. But I do agree that Terenz is a perfect backup catcher. And if you need him to play every day in case of injury, that's a guy you want there. So hopefully I would love to see more lineup consistency. I feel like we've seen a different lineup every day for this entire month. And, a lot of that's been through being hamstrung with injury and guys needing rest days and all that. But as soon as we can get back to that, and I always go back to 2022, where I feel like we saw the same lineup for 100 days in a row. And that was when the Mets offense was really fun to watch. This Mets offense feels kind of similar. They rely a ton on moving the chain, and they're not really getting their hits with runners in scoring position right now. And I feel like that'll even out. But what'll help even that out is guys playing every day and getting consistent playing time and getting those reps day in and day out. Part of that means you have to establish some roles, which is tough when you have a roster that is as talented as this one. So it's a good problem to have.
I agree, and for me, the consistency of lineup is a cool concept. I like it. The consistency for me would be Acuna has to start playing on a regular basis.
I think
if he gets cold, give him a beat, and Jeff McNeil has to be that super utility guy. Playing center field, playing second base, playing left field,
playing third base even. I've seen Jeff play third. It hasn't been bad.
I don't think he's comfortable over there.
Yeah,
and it might be from the last, the first time I watched him play over there. He's so good everywhere else. I think he looked uncomfortable, and I think with Baty and Vientos kind of being available every day, you don't have to worry about McNeil playing second base or third base. I mean. But that's the kind of rotation. Get Tyrone Taylor out there to keep guys fresh, and give Brandon Nimmo a day off every once in a while to keep him healthy, and then just mix it up inside of that. But Terenz is gonna get at bats because you got to keep your catcher fresh, and Francisco Alvarez, and he's been kind of had the injury bug on occasion. Some things not his fault. Just keep everybody involved, and I like what I've seen so far out of Vientos, out of Brett Baty, and out of Francisco Alvarez and Acuna. So making sure some type of shape where these guys are getting enough at-bats to ride the hot hand, I'm all for.
Yeah, and we got some hot hands in the lineup right now. We mentioned Vientos' last 15 games, 3 homers, 10 RBIs, a 321 average, and 889 OPS. That feels more like Mark Vientos, the guy we met in 2024 and came to love. Him and Baty, they've been hitting the ball, and that's a really welcome sign. These are Mets homegrown guys that they need to perform this year, and it helps when a guy like Juan Soto is beginning to look more and more like Juan Soto. Those May numbers, you can raise an eyebrow and start to get a little excited. 10 May games so far, 5 homers, 7 RBIs, 7 walks, a 282 average, a 1.101 OPS, which is very welcome to see. a couple people have mentioned this, and I'm not the first. His career OPS in April is the lowest of any of his months at 848, which is absolutely absurd.
Oh, so embarrassing.
I know, slumping Juan Soto at his 848 OPS. So I wanted to ask you, I mean, the numbers with runners in scoring position are still not great out of Soto from the 2-hole, but are you buying into the fact that he's about to fully break out and ascend to Mets stardom?
Yeah, I think he's already started to be himself, and I don't think it's weird saying breakout because the guy's on a Hall of Fame
it felt
path,
felt
and
weird saying that.
he just made $800 million. I think he's finally found his form, and the fact that he hasn't hit with runners in scoring position is simply because he was uncomfortable and he wasn't himself yet. The numbers that he was putting up without being like locked in at all, like to be struggling and to still, get on base regularly, hit a homer here and there. We're seeing the Juan Soto that we signed up for. He looks fantastic. All those runners in scoring position numbers will come back around, especially if Pete Alonso stays, as hot as he is.
Yeah.
He's going to see a lot more pitches to hit. I didn't expect to see the power surge from Soto.
That was the thing that shocked me because the plate discipline's always going to be there, and I think he's just getting more pitches in the zone because of exactly what you just said. Alonso has stayed hot. His OPS is still above 1,000 on the season. We're 7 weeks into the year. Pitchers are realizing that they can't just walk Juan Soto every time. They're going to get into a lot of trouble. So maybe that's it, or maybe he's just feeling more comfortable. I don't know.
Yeah, he's when you're that good eye-hand coordination, getting the barrel to the ball, he's just squaring it up every time he swings lately. But yeah, I'm fully bought into this is the Juan Soto that we've had the chance and opportunity to watch since he was 19 years old. So I love what I'm seeing from him.
Yeah, I mean, the runners in scoring position numbers right now, 147 with a 527 OPS on the year, which is, that's alarmingly bad for Juan Soto, and that's coming into consideration with him hitting better as of late. But getting hot at the right time is key for him. Alonso stays good, and I mean, after this Pirates series, a familiar friend, or I guess foe, comes into town, or we go to their town for a 3-game series. That's going to be the Subway Series this weekend. So maybe Juan Soto's getting hot at the right time because he knows what's around the corner. Who knows? But he's been fun to watch in the month of May so far. We've done a lot of batting talk because the guys have been mashing the ball lately, and even with these runners in scoring position numbers, they've still been putting up good numbers. The pitching has been great. I mean, we've seen a couple guys take a step back in May, but a lot of guys who were struggling in April have stepped forward. Ryan Stanek hasn't allowed a run in May. Kodai Senga continues to impress in 2025. Was there any individual performance on the pitching side of things in the past, I guess, couple weeks since we've talked, that has stood out to you from the Mets pitching staff?
I think for me, it's Clay Holmes. He hasn't done anything that he hasn't already done as a Met, as a starter, but he looks like he's getting more and more comfortable in what it takes to be a starting pitcher. I know he's done it in his before he became a big leaguer, and then he just figured out how to pitch in the bullpen, but it's not that easy. Your body can't just do what he's doing. He's figuring it out on the fly and having tons of success in figuring out what the best version of him is on a day-to-day basis. He looks more comfortable out there on the mound. In his first few starts, you can see him kind of thinking and working through and trying to find who he is out there. And you could see it in his body language sometimes, and the way he was throwing, he was unsure of it. And we're going to get some bumps in the road, but I've been so impressed with his consistency and the style with which he's being like, it's hard. He's reliable in the best sense of the word, and he shouldn't be that yet as a converted closer to a starter. Like he shouldn't be as comfortably reliable. And every time he takes the ball, I'm excited to watch him pitch.
Yeah, the thing that stood out for me in May for him is the fact that he's been able to regroup really well after tough innings because, Clay Holmes is he's not going to overpower every hitter. He has a very deep arsenal, but he's still going to get hit around. He'll still lose the zone from time to time. But in both his start against the Cardinals and his start against the Cubs, we'll start with the Cardinals one. In the third inning, he gives up 2 runs, 8 batters come to the plate. It felt like an inning that could have, ended his outing prematurely. After that, he retires 9 of the next 10 batters and goes 6 innings, 3 earned runs. It's not the sexiest line, but it could have been so much worse considering 3 runs were all surrendered in the first 3 innings. Then he pitches against the Cubs. He gives up the Tucker home run. The Cubs threaten in that inning. He throws a wild pitch. You're starting to see it unravel a little bit. After that, the 5th and 6th inning, 6 of the next 7 batters are retired. 3 strikeouts along the way. So what was the question we had at the beginning of the season about Clay Holmes as a starter? It was his length. Like, how deep can this guy really go into games? Is he going to be 5 and dive every time? I think the thing that's been most impressive for me is that when he's running into trouble in the middle of these outings, he's still able to get through that second, third time through the order and give you length. 3 of his last 4 outings have been 6 innings, which doesn't sound crazy if you've been a baseball fan for a long time, but considering what the Mets starting pitching has provided innings-wise this season, that's been massive in a lot of those games, and the Mets have been winning a ton of Clay Holmes starts. In fact, since opening day, which, by the way, remember when Clay Holmes got the opening day ball, the Mets are 7-0 in Clay Holmes starts. They've won every single time he's taken the mound since that opening day start. So, that's a stat that's not all-encompassing, but it's something I look at when I consider who's taken the bump. So, yeah, I do agree. He's been someone that stood out to me tremendously in the month of May so far.
That's you nailed it. You said it even better than I could have.
That's impossible.
The way he's bounced back from things that would rattle a guy that's just getting back to starting.
Yes.
A tough inning, being able to go back out there and get 9 of 10. Like, these are things that guys learn how to do. It's what we're seeing from like Griffin Canning, like what we're seeing from guys that are established veterans, that reliability. That's what, some of the best things that Jose Quintana was capable of doing.
Good comparison.
You give up a 3 spot, go out there and throw a couple of zeros up, let your team climb back into things. Don't get buried. And it's not an easy thing to do, and Clay Holmes is doing it wonderfully. So I'm glad you highlighted that.
Yeah, you also brought up Griffin Canning, who had a really clutch start in the final game of that Cubs series. 6 innings, 1 earned run, 2 hits allowed. In my opinion, I think that was his best start of the entire season. And going back to his past 5 starts now, the dude is really settling into his role as a starting pitcher. 27 innings, a 1.33 ERA, 29 strikeouts to 8 walks. He's someone else I've been really impressed with this month. It's wild to say that our 2 best starting pitchers right now are Griffin Canning and Clay Holmes. Like, that's just a crazy sentence. David Stearns has to be cheating. I said this to you before the show. He must be doing something. This isn't fair.
Are you discounting Kodai Senga?
Kodai Senga leads the National League in ERA. And I didn't even bring him up. It's insane. The Mets are getting incredible performances out of their starting pitching. They haven't been lengthy, but recently they've been going 6, and I think that's the key. That difference from a 5-inning outing to a 6-inning outing, that 1 inning a day adds up so much when you consider the strain on this bullpen. And lately, if you can continue to get that from Griffin Canning, considering how he's been pitching, this Mets rotation is going to continue to be a force.
100%. I can't. You can't talk about the success of the starting pitching without talking about how good defensively they've played behind these guys.
Yeah.
I'm talking, that we've seen some slip ups, but overall, like, their FIP numbers are much higher as a staff because it's fielding independent. So fielding independent pitching, like FIP, their numbers are higher because the defense behind them are making plays on a consistent basis that not everybody in the league makes. And it's for a good reason. And they're letting them play. And when you have a defense behind you that you can count on to make every routine play and some absolutely spectacular plays, you're going to be a lot more confident to fill that zone. So the walks are down across the board from our starting rotation because they don't want to give a guy a free pass because let him hit it hard because odds are he's going to get himself out. So I wanted to shout out the defensive team play. Like it's just been, it's such a fun brand of baseball to watch. Just guys playing defense. We're spoiled with a lot of guys across the board. With Lindor playing shortstop every day, he's made some plays this year that are even better than we've seen from him in the past. Like he's just guys are playing great. You know, obviously you're gonna have the Juan Soto out in right field, like
If he
just
hits
not
like he's
getting-
been hitting in May, I can't care that much. I'm sorry.
and he'll show off the cannon every once in
Yeah.
a while, which I'm a fan of. You got Nimmo who's starting to decline defensively out there, but outside of those guys, you know, Vientos at third, Pete at first. I don't. Pete doesn't get a lot. First basemen don't get any love defensively, especially metrically. Pete's been doing fine over there. He scoops everything. You know, sometimes it's not as pretty to see, but he's done enough, and he gives those guys a chance. It's just been pretty impressive to watch this team play defense.
You didn't even mention that the fact that the Mets have allowed the second least stolen bases in the league. Runners
That's defense
are
right there. That's a good point.
Runners are 15 for 29, which is one of the lowest rates in the league because Francisco Alvarez and Luis Torrens have been policing the base paths. It's such an advantage that's unspoken. One more thing. A team that we all look at as indestructible, the Dodgers, they've allowed 40 stolen bases in 50 attempts. That's like a glaring hole in their game that a team like the Mets don't have.
Yeah, and I'll give you this is, you know, it's 100% because of the catchers, but also because of the style of pitcher that they have.
Yes.
Kodai Senga, for as slow as he is, like game-wise, he's a quick to the plate. Griffin Canning is smart. Clay Holmes is quick to the plate, basically slide steps.
Yep.
David Peterson has a great pickoff move. He's left-handed. And Tyler McGill has quickened up his delivery. These guys have emphasized it. This is a long cry from the days when I was playing, when you had DeGrom, Syndergaard,
Wheeler.
Steven Matz. These guys were the slowest delivery in the history of the planet.
Yeah.
And it was a philosophy of, no, I don't care if they steal second or even steal third. I'm going to strike these guys out. It's different in today's game, and we're not going to let them get a free base ever.
Yeah.
If we can help it. So it's a combination of, again, a much better brand of baseball to watch and to play defense behind. So these guys are on their toes constantly. And teams are aware that they're quick to the plate and that these catchers can hose them out. And one of the best, Francisco Lindor's like scoop and tag
Oh, yeah.
at second base.
In Arizona. Yeah.
Yeah, like I've played behind or played, you know, had shortstops and second basemen that don't even attempt to make that tag. And it's such an advantage. A catcher will unleash their arm knowing that the shortstop is going to put the glove on the ball and having an attempt. I've played with so many shortstops that just come in, catch that ball just to make sure it doesn't go to the outfield. Like won't put their body on the line, won't put themselves in a vulnerable position. I mean, it's just overall just really, really good team defense.
Yeah, it's been such a joy to watch. And, you know, go back a calendar year from right now, the Mets were getting run on more than any team in the league, and it felt like there was nothing they could do about it. To see the philosophy and strategy change so quickly last year and it bleed into this year and improve upon that there's a whole dimension to the game that changes for the Mets pitching, especially when you consider the fact that they don't give up home runs. Like, if you're the light went off again if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. If you factor in the fact that they're not walking batters as much, so they're relying on soft contact and trusting their defense, if you spin in the fact that they don't give up home runs, which is bleeding directly into fielding independent pitching, that means that when these guys are getting on, singles don't turn into doubles like they do for basically half of the league. And that's such a dimension to the game that I think a lot of teams haven't been able to adapt. And I can't speak to what the Mets are doing, how they're doing it better than every other team. I'm just glad I can enjoy it from a viewer perspective.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It's awesome to watch. It's what winning teams look like. Like
Absolutely.
championship caliber teams. And this is a problem for you nailed the Dodgers. This is a little tangent, but the Dodgers are in trouble when it comes to that because they have pitchers like, you know, Tyler Glasnow is, you know, the Steven Matz, DeGrom, Syndergaard, like slow, strike everybody out, that kind of motion. those guys they're gonna get run on. Like it's a weakness. Dustin May, he's got that big like all these guys. It's a style difference. So I love seeing what the Mets have done.
It's been cool to watch. And one side of the team we haven't talked as much about. We talked about the lineup. We talked about the rotation performing as of late. The bullpen's kind of taken a back seat, which I think has been ultimately a good thing. You know, I think if your bullpen gets overexposed in April and May, it's not always a good thing. And the Mets starters have been going deeper into games. But one guy who we haven't brought up in a negative light recently has been Edwin Diaz. Edwin Diaz has been pitching better as of late. He pitched the last 2 games of this Cubs series. He's looked strong, and this return to form for him has been directly coincided with the return of Francisco Alvarez, especially if you remember back in that Washington series. Diaz looked like he was having, his usual kind of outing, a walk, a wild pitch, very erratic. Alvarez went out to the mound. Who knows what Alvarez is whispering in these pitchers' ears, but it's magic. Maybe he's casting a spell on them. Ever since then, Diaz has looked very good. I mean, he's still perfect in save opportunities on the year, but since Alvarez has returned, 5 innings pitched, 1 walk, no hit by pitches, no wild pitches. Before that, 11 innings pitched, 6 walks, 2 hit by pitches, 4 wild pitches, which led the league, which resulted in a .340 on-base percentage against. From your viewpoint, because I always defer to you when it comes to evaluating where Edwin Diaz is at, health-wise, comfort-wise, mechanics-wise, have you seen a tangible difference since that return, or has it kind of just been a good stretch of Diaz pitching?
I think it's a definite couple of strides forward, and some like a good streak. I think he's dialed up to where we've seen him dominate. From 22, I don't think he's going to get back to 22.
No,
dominance.
And I think most Mets fans realize that version of Diaz is not there
I still think
anymore.
it's in there. I think it's a possibility to me. The ceiling is still there. I think the velo is down basically because he's doesn't have the confidence to let it rip on consistency.
Sure.
But I think like when the playoffs come, I think he can dial that
I mean, you
in.
saw it in the DS last year. That strikeout of Schwarber.
I still think it's we in 22 we saw it every pitch basically was 99 or 100 with that slider. I think he's working his way to that, but I think he's taken a huge couple of steps forward just on efficiency. He's throwing strikes.
Yes.
The shape of his pitches are consistent. It's much easier for him to get outs when he knows where the ball is going to go and what it's going to look like out of his hand. I mean, just in May, this is like he's thrown 1 inning in all 4 outings as in May, and his pitch totals are 14, 13, 11, and 10.
Yeah, that's an important part of it, too.
That is not Edwin Diaz that we've learned, especially the struggling one. I mean, we saw 2/3 of an inning, 30 against Miami. 24 pitches in 1 inning, like 19. He was averaging like close to 20. When your stuff's that good, you shouldn't have that, unless you're just guys can't put the ball in play and you're just swinging and missing every time, which is occasionally. But I do like where he's at. I think this is a big step forward in reliability. We talked about Clay Holmes being consistent. Edwin Diaz has been the antithesis of that, of like who are you going to get? Like flip a coin. I don't know if he's going to be dominant or we're going to be biting our fingernails the whole time. Just curious on which form of Diaz, because he can still get people out when he walks 3 and he can throw up a 0. But this is the Diaz that can win you a World Series.
Yes.
I really do believe that. I think his outings, he's shown me lately, especially in May, that he can throw strikes and he can have consistent shape on all of his pitches. I love what I've seen. It might be Francisco Alvarez, but I think more importantly, it's just him getting in more games and staying locked in mentally.
Yeah, we had a long stretch of Diaz not pitching, I believe before the St. Louis series, April 26th to May 4th, which is that's 9 days without throwing, that's
a lot.
It's a lot, especially for your closer, a guy that kind of sets the tone for the whole bullpen. Speaking of which, a lot of guys that were struggling at the end of April, getting used a ton, they've been better in May. Ryan Stanek, 5 shutout innings. Huascar Brazoban, 4 2/3 no earned runs. Edwin Diaz, we just mentioned. And Jose Buteau, 5 innings, 1 earned run. He's been a lot better. haven't seen him come into a lot of runners on situations, and I think that's kind of been the key for him. So it's been nice to see some bounce back performances from guys that we were just a little worried about. You remember last episode, it felt like the bullpen was in turmoil. Now it feels like they've settled in a decent bit, which has been a very welcome sign. They also have a potential reinforcement on the way. Paul Blackburn is finally getting into outings at AAA Syracuse. His first outing didn't go great, 60 pitches and only 31 strikes, 3 innings, 3 earned runs. He'll probably need a couple more before he's ready. I'm not sure what role he'll fill, but it's always nice for the Mets to get another arm up there. It could be Dedniel Nunez going back down because I don't know if he looks ready yet. He hasn't looked like the guy we saw in 2024, which is a shame, but maybe with a couple more good outings, that whole perspective can change.
Yeah, I think Dedniel Nunez, obviously, they saw something in spring training that I didn't see, behind the scenes. He hasn't thrown consistent strikes, which is not what the guy never threw balls. He just threw the ball right by guys, no walks, that kind of thing. He's not quite himself yet, and I think that's, coming off that major injury. That's a matter of time. They are desperately missing AJ Minter.
Yes, and they're going to be missing him.
Yeah, and Danny Young, man. Danny Young looked like he was, going to step in. They need some help there. That'll be interesting to see how they address that. But, Kranick, we talked about a little bit before we started recording, has come back to earth a little bit. Mm-hmm. He might have been over his skis and performance, but he's going to be good. He's fine. Maybe not the setup guy that they were like, hey, maybe this guy can do that, like the Dedniel Nunez last year. But Reed Garrett looks amazing. Yep. Stanek, you said, came back into it. These are going to be the guys that they rely on, and Buteau looks like they're figuring out that he's not a runners on kind of guy, and that's okay. Not everybody can be. It's a different form.
Yeah, Genesis Cabrera is going to get some looks as the lefty. We'll see how that pans out. So far it's been okay, but it's not really the name you were coming to trust there with guys like AJ Minter and Danny Young, who's throwing better at the end there.
How far away is Brooks Raley?
July? I don't know. We did the math last time.
And he's coming back off of Tommy John. A second
it's going to be a little bit. Maybe there's a trade. Who knows? But overall, Mets are playing good team baseball, fundamental defense, great starting pitching. Still waiting on that clutch hitting, but overall, a lot of positive signs from the recent stretch of Mets baseball, even though they've been playing roughly 500 baseball, which is, I think, less than we expect from them. They do welcome the Pirates into town for a 3-game series. The Pirates just took 2 out of 3 from the Atlanta Braves, so thank you very much, Pittsburgh Pirates. Appreciate that from you guys. And this is the this is a softer series before the Mets go on kind of a gauntlet of 9 games where they're going to be on the road against the Yankees and Boston, and then they will welcome in the Los Angeles Dodgers before they get a nice little respite against the White Sox and Rockies. So it's important for the Mets to take this series. They'll be home. They play good ball at home. Paul Skeens tonight against David Peterson. Kodai Senga versus Mitch Keller in Game 2, and Clay Holmes versus Bailey Falter. Revenge game for Clay Holmes. Should be interesting. So that's your series problems coming up. Jerry, you got anything else before we wrap up today's show?
I will be doing pre- and post-game for the Yankees stuff, so I'll be in town. Excited for that.
Huge.
Always a fun time to be in New York. A lot of baseball caps being worn around. It's warm in the city. It's going to be fun. So I'm excited to come back. It's been a little minute since I've been in the city.
It's going to be an explosive weekend of Mets baseball. We will talk to you guys again soon. If you're watching on YouTube, please leave a like if you enjoyed today's episode. Subscribe to our channel. It's free. It's easy. You just hit the red button, and then you're done. If you're listening on a podcast app, leave us a rating, leave us a review. Apple, Google, wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify. We appreciate it. It goes a long way. It helps get new ears into the pod. That'll do it for us, though. We will see you guys on our next ep whenever that comes, probably next Monday, and LFGM.
Let's go Mets.
Shea Station. Jerry and Charlie. Shea Station. Jerry and Charlie, thank you all for coming. Hope you enjoyed the show. We will see you next time, where we'll be back below.
Shea Station.